Hi, and welcome to this sort of impromptu live show. This is something I'm just trying out. Normally, I schedule these live shows, but I had this slideshow that I shared a couple days ago for a presentation for a nonprofit group, KS Wild, and thought I should share with everybody else who hasn't had a chance to watch that show live. So this is sort of a live recording. If you have questions while it's live, please ask them. But otherwise, I'm going to get started and go through these slides. And this is about the rivers and the creeks of the South Kalmiopsis. The Kalmiopsis Wilderness Area is a place I love visiting, I love going to, and the South Kalmiopsis is particularly special to me. And the creeks I'm going to cover and the tributaries here are largely unprotected. And I want to share information about them so that you might be encouraged to advocate for the Southwestern Oregon Watershed and Salmon Protection Act. It has a long name, or the Oregon Recreation Enhancement Act that also protects the rogue, or also the River Democracy Act. So, with that, let's get started. And usually we have these really cool personal live events. This is one at Patagonia a few years ago. And they're just a good time to get together, share time with friends. And I've spoken previously about places I love. Here's a photo of Rough and Ready Creek at one of these events. And here I am sharing a map of this area that I want to talk about. And the area, the dark green area is the Kalmiopsis Wilderness. This is federally protected wilderness. It's the highest level of protection land can have. And you can see that part of the Illinois River flows through it. The Chetco River starts in the Kalmiopsis and floats through it. And in the south, the North Fork of the Smith starts in the Kalmiopsis, flows along the border, and then heads down into California. And I want to start by talking about the North Fork of the Smith. This is a classic whitewater run and one of my favorite places in the world. It has this beautiful serpentine rock. It's also called peridotite, and just this really cool scenery and great whitewater makes this place epic. And here's another photo. This is one of the biggest rapids called Scout. Here's people scouting that rapid. And this is an area called Waterfall Alley. Now we're in California here on this amazingly famous, spectacular river. But if you're standing at Put-in, here we're almost at the Put-in, we're looking north into Oregon. And the river is dramatically different within Oregon. And so you can see here again, it starts near Chetco Peak there, flows through the Kalmiopsis, and then forms a border with it until it hits Baldface Creek, and then goes down towards California where it's a more famous river. And to get into the upper North Fork of the Smith, it's tough. It's a bushwhack down there. It's four-wheel drive roads to even get to a place you can bushwhack to. Here we are kind of hiking in. There's an old sort of road here we were sort of following. So we get to this place, this small little creek. This is the Put-in. And once you launch on the upper North Fork of the Smith, it's overgrown with trees, a lot of log portages. This is sometimes I felt like as much portaging as boating for quite a while. Here's we're scouting from a log we just portaged, and more portaging. And at some point, there's fewer trees, and it opens up a little bit, and we get to start paddling more. And this is a remarkably beautiful and clear and special river. It feels like a rainforest. It is a rainforest, actually. It gets tons. This area gets tons of rain, but it just feels like a jungle almost. It feels like you're in, an Ecuadorian jungle. It's just so alive and so green, and almost overgrown at times. Here's one of the fun rapids we did. Just stunningly beautiful. Again, very dense forest. This is the biggest rapid, North Fork Falls. This is the biggest rapid on the North Fork of the Smith in its entirety. And in the foreground is a rock called Radiolarian Shirt. And it's a very rare rock. At least I think it's rare. I see it. I see it on the Illinois a few places. We see it on the Chetco a couple places. It's found throughout the Kalmiopsis, and really interesting rock. And when it rains, it has a really cool like red and yellow striping. It gets really vibrant. It's a beautiful rock. So next, after the North Fork of the Smith, which is a remarkable river, I want to talk about one of its tributaries, Baldface Creek. And Baldface Creek is special in its own right. And to get to it, it's about an 8-mile hike in. And you typically hike in when there's snow up at the high pass because you need water in the river. And so the water in the creek, the creek comes from both snowmelt and rain. And here we are. We pack rafted it. There's tons of springs coming in. There's some Darlingtonia, which I'll show more photos of later on the wall. It's pretty minor. But just a really beautiful, special place that's very hard to get to, so very few people have seen. And when we did a combination of backpacking and pack rafting. And here we were portaging one of the rapids that was a little challenging to portage. Next, I want to move over to the Illinois drainage. So the North Fork of the Smith is very famous. So is the Illinois. And the Illinois, to me, is my favorite river trip. This is a remarkable place that I personally love spending my time. And here we are above the wild section before the wilderness. And this is camping at a place called South Bend, just before Greenwall Rapid, the famous Greenwall Rapid. You can just see that like greenish turquoise color of the river. This is the color that rivers should be, right? This is remarkably clean water, and what rivers should look like if their upper watersheds are protected. Here, this demonstrates the clear water and just the beauty of the place. And this is Greenwall Rapid. It's a class 5 rapid. We're just seeing half of it here. This is one of the most famous rapids in the world. Here we are again at Greenwall Rapid. And again, it's just a very, very special river, in part because of the rugged beauty, but also because of the clarity of the water. And what I want to talk about are tributaries of Illinois. The Illinois is a wild and scenic river for a lot of its length, and it flows through wilderness, but all these tributaries are largely unprotected. They're on federal land, but they don't have protections. Rough and Ready Creek has a temporary mineral withdrawal, but otherwise, the West Fork of Illinois, Rough and Ready Creek, and Josephine are pretty much unprotected. And this is the upper headwaters of the Illinois River, upstream of where I was just showing. So first, this is the West Fork of the Illinois in winter. And it's just a small little, it looks like a creek, but it's technically a river. It's the West Fork of the Illinois River. Here we are putting on in Duckies. And I like these kind of trips, like winter, low water. I don't know if anybody's ever done this before. And along the way, we find this massive patch of Darlingtonia. Now, Darlingtonia, this is Darlingtonia californica. It's pretty famous in the area. It's a carnivorous plant. It basically eats insects to get nitrogen and other nutrients that it needs. And we usually find these in small patches along the riverbank. This one's about an acre. I mean, I'm just guessing. I mean, I don't know how big an acre is exactly, but this is a massive fen of Darlingtonia. A fen is a big patch of it. We were paddling down. We saw a few kind of hanging out the sides, and I walked up a few feet and saw this, and it was just remarkable. I've never seen anything like this before in my experiences in the Kalmiopsis. Here we are. This is a Whiskey Creek. This is a tributary to the West Fork of the Illinois, and this is downstream a bit when it gets bigger, paddling the main part of the West Fork of the Illinois, just downstream of where the West Fork meets Whiskey Creek. Next, I want to talk about Rough and Ready Creek, which to me, this really is the headwaters of Illinois in my mind. This is a remarkably special place. And as you'll see, a place I'm obsessed with. My first time going to paddle it, you can see the road kind of on the right-hand side of the photo. We got to the end of the road. We were about to put in. We thought, what happens if we go upstream? I bet there's more river upstream. Let's go explore and see what there is. So we waded across the river at the normal put in to paddle this. And we walked up through bushes and finally found our way down to a place we could put in on the North Fork of Rough and Ready Creek. And just had an awesome day. And this is a very remarkable place. All of us had spent time on the North Fork of the Smith, and I think all of us think it's one of the most special places on earth. This has that same character. It has that brown serpentine, the peridotite. There's pitcher plants. There's rare botany everywhere. It's that sparse vegetation. It's so beautiful and just very, very clear water. So after that trip, I thought, what if we went higher? So I asked my friend JR to hike with me, and we hiked up even further up the North Fork of Rough and Ready Creek, and had a great time paddling more of the rapids. And this is the hardest rapid on North Fork of Rough and Ready Creek, which we both struggled with. It's definitely a little bit of a challenge, but just had a wonderful day of paddling. And that day we left our boats at the confluence of the North Fork of Rough and Ready Creek and the South Fork of Rough and Ready Creek, so we could come back the next day and paddle the South Fork of Rough and Ready Creek. And when we came back, this happened. There was a big storm. Our boats were covered in snow, but we still went up, and JR was into it. We just decided to go paddle. So it actually is a little easier to carry your boat when you can drag it in the snow. And went maybe a mile up to the South Fork of Rough and Ready Creek, something like that, and just had this really cool day of like heavy snowflakes and just beautiful scenery. And that brown serpentine being covered in snow is just really remarkably special. And here I am. This is the confluence of the South Fork and the North Fork of Rough and Ready Creek that day. Well, I was still obsessed. I wanted to go even higher. This place just like was so magical to me. I wanted to really get to know it. And even though it's not in protected wilderness, it has a wild character. You have to hike into this place. There's no driving in, there's no bicycling in. This is to me basically wilderness, although it's not protected as wilderness. And so we hiked to our first night camp. This took a day to bushwhack up to this spot and hiked more next day. Here's more of that Darlantonia. And I love these shots. Anytime you can shoot a kayaker with Darlantonia in it, you always shoot it because it's just makes it special. To our second night camp. So we had hiked 2 days with hardshell kayaks in the rain to get to this point and camped here again. And one of the issues with going here is that you have to have rain for the river to be up. So once it stopped raining, we realized we had to go down the river as fast as we can, or the Rough and Ready Creek would get too low. These watersheds go up really fast and drop really fast and flow based on rain. And once it stopped raining, we had to get down to the river. And that's what it looked like from almost where we camped. And we made our way down that hillside and we were able to paddle this river out to Highway 199 before it dropped out. And this is pretty low, like because it stopped raining, it was pretty low. You could, those of you that know Highway 199, you can see it there in the photo, kind of halfway down the photo. And this is near our takeout. Well, I wasn't done. I was absolutely obsessed. And so we watched rain and snow levels and everything. And this time we decided to take inflatable kayaks because we could pack them in our backpacks much easier and get the hike in much easier. And so, we knew the route and we decided to go even higher. Of course, like most expeditions to this area, it's going to be miserable in some way. And it snowed on us quite a bit again. And here's my friend Nate Wilson hiking through the snow, but incredibly happy. And just spending time in this place is really special. And we went up to nearly where Rough and Ready Lake is, near the headwaters of Rough and Ready Creek, and bushwhacked our way down to paddle this river. And to me, this is as high as we can go. Now, there are probably ways you could go even higher, but I'd probably beyond my skill set. And it would be incredibly hard to get up there. And we're just treated with this magical place. Now, to me, this looks like heaven. This is that brown serpentine rock. It looks like the desert, but it's not because this place gets a ton of rain, right? But because the serpentine doesn't have a lot of nutrients for plants, the trees are sparse, which is very, I think, really cool. And there's a lot of really unique plants. There's a lot of rare and endangered plants here because of the lack of nutrients in the soil. These plants have adapted to the soils. But great rapids, full of adventure. I tore my boat, which made it pretty exciting. And this is that big rapid that you saw the upside down kayaking earlier. We had much better time in the inflatable kayaks, actually. And here's Nate doing what Nate does, trying to get his boat unstuck. And just a remarkable time. So this was my 4th trip to Rough and Ready Creek. I'm just obsessed with it. I've been back multiple times since, but this is as high as I've been up in that canyon. And I can just attest, it's like top to bottom, pristine, special, worthy of protection. It's amazing. So the next tributary of the Illinois, as we go downstream, is Josephine Creek. And this is the last tributary in the South Kalmiopsis. And again, I call this the South Kalmiopsis. It's the area south and a little bit to the east of the Kalmiopsis. That's just what I refer to it as. Again, it includes North Fork of the Smith, Chrome Creek, Baldface Creek, Rough and Ready Creek, West Fork, Illinois, and Josephine Creek. And to get to the upper headwaters of Josephine Creek, you have to go over a pass called Free and Easy Pass. And it is not easy. This is a legitimate 4-wheel drive, high clearance. You need to know what you're doing to get over this road. There's no Subarus will make it. You need good tires to get to this place. And this is a place that gold was discovered in Oregon, and people still actively mine today. So although we're on public lands, people have mining claims here based on like antiquated mining laws. So people come in here and they mine all the time. And so there are roads back here. But this is, when we went in this time, we think we might have been the first people to ever paddle this creek. We really have no idea. But it was really cool. There were some challenging rapids. Here we are scouting what we think was the most difficult rapid. But most of it was just like fun class 3 and 4. We rafted it and kayaked it. And one thing that sort of blew us away was the amount of things left behind by miners. And so, like I said, there's active mining here now. And so we just saw a lot of remnants of mining on this first trip. And so we went back. I wanted, again, like I'm obsessed. I want to go even higher on Josephine Creek. So Nate and Ryan and I went back and we got his Toyota stuck in the mud here, which we spent an hour and a half digging it out with our hands. And there's no tow service is going to get back here. So we had to get it out. And it's really hard to get around back here. But we were able to put on that day. It was kind of low water. Ryan took a stand-up paddleboard, and we didn't make it higher on the river because we got stuck in the mud, but we repeated the section we'd done before. And here's Ryan at the confluence of Josephine Creek and its largest tributary, Canyon Creek, which there's a ton of mining history up Canyon Creek too. There's a big city up there and just really fascinating area. And again, evidence of mining claim, not only like mining claim signs, but also just like stuff left around. Well, the conditions were perfect to run Upper Josephine Creek. And you rarely get perfect conditions on these creeks because you need the right snow levels, you need rain, you need water in the river. Everything has to, and you have to have a team to get together to run these places is hard. And so we went and bought this truck to get back in. We knew Nate's truck wasn't good enough, and we went and bought this, which is kind of insane. But it allowed us to come in a couple days later while the conditions were still good and go much higher on Josephine Creek. And so we hiked in with inflatable kayaks and we're able to paddle. Here's another one of those obligatory Darlingtonia photos where there's Darlingtonia on the left there, along with the paddler. And what stands out about Josephine Creek was how much Darlingtonia there was. There's walls like this covered in it. This is a pretty, to me, rare to see this much at once, but it was up and down this creek. Amazing water quality, rare plants, but a very beautiful place. Unfortunately, littered with mining debris. We came across this mining shack along the way, and again, this is our public lands. This is Forest Service land. This belongs to everybody. It's frustrating to me that people can have mining claims and just leave their stuff here. I don't understand the legality of it, but my memories of every visit to Josephine Creek are remnants of recent mining. And this is the last photo of paddling Josephine Creek. So that's all my photos. I just want to, if you've watched this and for some reason think this place is special, like I do, I want to do something about it. I put a link in the bottom of the video to KS Wild where you can go and learn more about it. And there's a button to take action, which is just like filling out a little form and thanking our senators for the work they're doing between either the SOUSPA, the Southern Oregon Watershed and Salmon Protection Act, the Oregon Recreation Enhancement Act, and the River Democracy Act, which all have different protections for this area. So if you want to support those protections, click the link below. And yeah, thanks for watching this. I appreciate your time. Thank you.